think what we have to understand is that within the framework of the American empire, there are different factions that have different visions for the Middle East. Some want to carve up the Middle East and reconfigure the Middle East. In particular, the Zionist faction of the American empire wish to foment civil war, so the Arabs and Muslims are fighting each other rather than fighting the Israeli cuckoo in the nest. The traditional U.S. empire builders, of course, have traditionally had a policy of propping up Arab strongmen and doing commercial deals, very lucrative commercial deals, with Arab strongmen. And so I think what we're seeing with the released documents implicating David Welsh, who of course brokered the deal back in 2008, where the political démarche was made between the Bush administration and the Gaddafi regime, that Welsh, of course, being a businessman, wants to continue and perpetuate stability in the region, continue the Gaddafi regime deals with American plutocrats such as himself. And so what's quite fascinating, I think, is where we're seeing kind of like in the end of the 19th century, a scramble for Africa, in this case a scramble for North Africa and the Middle East, where different factions within the elite are competing to implement their conflicting visions of a future Middle East. And as a result, I think we're going to see mass slaughter and bloodshed as each faction of the ruling class sponsors its own Arab legions in the region, which is going to end up being a civil war, and the resources of the region will either end up being siphoned off by one faction of the ruling class or the other. Of course, the Israeli faction of the ruling class, who are very influential, the Washington Post reported that 60% of the Democrat Party's money comes from Jewish philanthropists, which means they have a lot of clout with the incumbent Obama administration. Likewise in France, where the individual Sarkozy is a well-known Zionist. And so one cannot help wondering if behind the scenes there is an agenda being implemented, what might be called the Sharon Doctrine, that was initially conceived in the 1980s, of carving up the Middle East like a shawarma into small ethnic and religious statelets, and that this agenda will, of course, break the OPEC cartel, which allows Middle Eastern countries, or Middle Eastern regimes, I should say, to become strengthened and emboldened. And that's good for certain U.S. companies who like stability, who like to do commerce with dictators, who like to go into the region and do commerce and have access to the labor markets and so on. That's very bad for the state of Israel, who wants to be hegemonic. He wants to rule the roost in the Middle East. And so, to repeat, there's different factions within the elite competing and conflicting in this carving up of the Middle East ensemble.